I started the other talk shows that I had before with just introducing the concept. I know that a few of you have seen it before, so you know what it's all about. But it started at our annual Norwegian event a few years ago. We thought we'd try something else, something different that we hadn't seen in any other Lego events. And me being a journalist, it made sense that I sort of had a chat show or something that I just sit down and have a conversation with somebody who might have something interesting to say. And the idea is that it's supposed to be contain some of the same information as a presentation would do, if a presentation by one of these people. But a presentation can always be could always become a little bit one-sided. So you'll just sit there and then just introduce and talk and stuff. So we figured if it's questions and answers, then it might feel a little bit more like you're just listening into a conversation between two people who are interested in Lego. So that might be a little bit more entertaining. So we've had some very nice guests. We did this in Norway, I think 3 years now at our event. I've done it twice in Portugal. This is the second time I'm trying it here. We have 3 guests today. We have 3 different guests tomorrow. Today we have a whiskey expert, a wizard expert, and a guy whose work with the bricks can almost only be described as wizardry. So I think that's 3 W's today. So please welcome on stage my first guest, Rod Gillies. So, welcome to the show, Rod.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. I'd like to start with your nickname, Too Much Caffeine.
Yeah.
What does it mean and why did you have to be all fancy and spell it with a number 2?
Because T-double-O was already T.
Oh.
Okay. So no, it was at the time on Flickr. Everyone had an alias. And so yeah, that was just what popped into my head. I think it might have come from, do you remember the villain in Police Academy?
Yeah.
At one point he says it's a terrible film, and it's a terrible origin story for Flickr tag, but that's what it was. So.
Okay. My online tag was Lago with an @ which is non-Googleable, so very stupid decision. I only discovered that afterwards.
I think it's one of the things I think is great that Flickr now has, and online in general has now moved to real names. Because I think it also drives some better behaviour.
Yes, and it's so much easier to put a name to the face.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to have the tag as well.
Yeah.
I read online somewhere that you got back into Lego around 2007.
Yes.
Which means, when it says you got back into it, means you were into Lego as a kid. Can you remember your first set?
Not my very first one. I remember playing with a hospital and a police station set, which I can distinctly remember. All the parts are still at my mother's house. And the first one I remember being given was the first Technic set, so the Technic car. And I can distinctly remember playing that, building that, and being absolutely baffled and confused and hapless with the pins. It was just because it was such a new concept for me. I was used to stacking bricks, and then the pins going through the holes. I just couldn't work it out, couldn't do it. Had to go and get my dad to help me, and I can distinctly remember that.
Yeah. So. That's cool. So you had a dark age.
Yes.
That lasted quite a while,
yes.
And then you discovered the online Lego community. But it was one particular genre that lured you back. Can you tell us a bit about that?
So it was actually my wife gave me the Mindstorms for my birthday, because I've been dropping hints that this might be appreciated, and so she gave me the Mindstorms robotics, and I got into that and found the online stuff, so videos out, and I built a couple of things, which I then posted on YouTube, and then it generated quite a lot of views. And look at them now; they are terrible, but at the time I think they were kind of cool. And then I discovered the rest of the online community, sort of fell into that. I haven't built Mindstorms for years, and it was steampunk, the building the Victorian era sci-fi stuff that kind of, I just loved doing it, and there weren't an awful lot of other people doing it, and so yeah, it worked for me.
Because your first mock that you posted on Flickr back in 2008 was an airship.
Was it?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you anything about the quality of it, but
It was terrible.
And you actually love steampunk to the extent that you started writing books about it.
Yes.
Like real books, novels.
Yes.
Red Mercury, Neptune Rising, Titan's Fire, the Empires of Steam trilogy,
Yeah.
which according to one reader came from Mr. Gillies and his dazzling imagination. It says so on Amazon. How?
Yeah, I think I might have known that person. It wasn't me.
No, okay. How did you become an author?
It's something that I've always wanted to do. I'd started writing over and over and over again, and you get to about 10,000 words. I'm not a great completer finisher, so that whole thing, you get to about 10,000 words and then it's like, whatever. And then...
So your novels are exciting for 10,000 words, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it's going to get a bit morbid and dark now. So my father died when he was 42, and his father had died when he was 42. And so I know it's ridiculous, but I had this thing in my head that everything I had to do before I was 42, just in case.
Yeah.
And so actually the year I turned 42, I was like, I've got to write a book, I've not written a book yet. And so I wrote a book. And I'd only ever said, okay, I'm just going to write one book and that'll be it. And then, because it's off the list, but then people were foolish enough to say it wasn't awful. And so I was encouraged to do a bit more. So yeah, so I wrote 2 more.
Great, dazzling.
And they're not dazzling. Do you know what? They're perfectly alright thrillers if you like that kind of thing. And, I quite like them, but I kind of wrote them for me rather than anything else.
Which is the most important thing, always. Right after the 3rd novel was published, you found yourself contributing strongly to a different kind of book. Guy Himber's Steampunk Lego, where about 20 models featured in the book came from you. The only builder with more models in that book is Guy Himber himself. To me, who is not that much into steampunk, it is a gorgeous book. So what was that experience like for you?
It was brilliant. I mean, Guy, for a while, Guy and I, we weren't the only people building steampunk stuff, but we developed a fairly healthy competition. So he wasn't exactly my nemesis. I presume if you're a mock builder, you've got a nemesis. You should have a nemesis. It makes you build better stuff. Pick a nemesis. You don't even have to tell them. Just pick someone that you kind of, you're my nemesis, and I'm going to beat you. So Guy and I kind of developed this I don't know, a bit of a friendly competition. I think it was good for both of us. His stuff is absolutely brilliant. It's very different from mine now. We developed quite different styles, but then when he had the opportunity to produce the book, he asked if I would contribute, and that was it was great. It was really good fun. It was nice to be able to do some stuff in a slightly different presentation format, just taking photos for format.
And nice to have something in book form that
it's amazing. Yeah, so that's great.
Now we've talked a fair bit about books already, but there's no way around that with you. Your recent project have included several official Lego books from DK.
Yes.
The Lego Playbook, Awesome Ideas, Lego Animal Atlas. How did you get into that?
Pete Reed. So the king of the Lego Spacers. He got in touch and said that Darling Kindersley were looking for some more builders, and asked if I would be interested. So he kind of put me in touch with him and had a good chat with him. Sounded like good fun, and so I've done probably 1 or 2 a year for the last wee while. So I think I'm up to 9 books, and I've just finished all the models for another 2, which has been good fun.
Yeah.
So.
Because the latest books you've done have been different in that there's a couple of Star Wars books and superheroes book where you build pretty much all the models.
Yes. Except the one that comes with it.
Yeah,
that likes to be an official model.
But what is that process like? I know there have been some nerve-wracking quality control meetings with Lego people that it needs to adhere to certain standards in order to go into an official Lego book.
It does, and that's especially at the start of doing that going through that process. For the first couple of books you work on, everything that you do that goes in the books, even if it's not got instructions, Even if it's just for inspiration, and the whole idea is to give kids inspiration to work with the bricks they've already got to build new things. Every single model has to pass pretty much all the same quality control, stability control, got good legal connections and everything. So coming in as an AFOL builder who was building steampunk things that were held together with half a stud connection and sellotape across the back of it just for the photograph and all that kind of stuff. It was very difficult to get into that style of building. Now it's funny. Most of my mocks now are legal. Yeah. In a way that I never thought I would be worried about. When you suddenly get to, I've got to do that, and it just becomes a more ingrained way of building. And for me, I developed a huge amount of respect for the designers, because a lot of the rules, a lot of the techniques that they can use, and they're really clever and exciting ways that they then deliver the shapes that they want. So it's interesting. And we've had a couple of I describe them as robust discussions rather than arguments, but they're not arguments I could ever win. It's like, no, that's not legal. Oh, okay.
Because apparently sellotape is not an official language.
No, and blue tack's bad as well.
Okay. Final book question. How does it feel to be at a Star Wars fan convention signing books?
It was astonishingly good. It's the absolute sort of, if my geekery has a Venn diagram, it was like Lego and Star Wars and doing books and stuff, and so got to go to Star Wars Celebration when I was in London and spent 2 days signing books, and it was just brilliant, and got to see, very lucky, went to see a guy called Doug Chan, who's the production design director for Lucasfilm, and he did a talk which I have then used, things he said I've tried to use when I've been building things or designing things, or also in my real world work, when you're developing creative things. So.
Okay. I want to get back to your building skills, but we have to touch on your affiliation with the Brothers Brick as well. Because you're a regular blogger for them. How did that happen?
They were looking for new writers. They put out a submissions request, and I remember how I felt the first couple of times as literally, just coming out of my dark age, just starting to engage with the online community, and then that the first couple of times a model of mine got featured, and that the encouragement that provided, and it's exciting, and it felt genuinely really nice to be recognised in that way. So the thought of being able to do that for other builders, and I know it's funny when you're writing for Brothers Brick, because there are so many fantastic builders who bring out fantastic things again and again and again, and so they tend to feature fairly often. But equally, what I love is that when you find something that maybe has 20 views on Flickr and yet is an absolutely fantastic model that millions of people deserve to see, and we are able to provide that audience for great models.
So that's one of your criteria when you choose what to blog, is what is blog worthy and might not have got the audience you deserve.
No, it's not, because is it worthy of feature? Yeah. Is the be all and end all, no matter who built it, no matter how old it is, because sometimes great models go under the radar for a long time. But is it worthy of feature is the primary driver of everything. It's lovely when you find something that is new, or a builder who hasn't been featured before and is doing really interesting things. That's fantastic. But is the model worthy of feature? Whether it's a Lego rock star, or whether it's a guy who's building for the very first time.
Yeah. You have, in particular, been in charge of the end of the year awards that the Brothers Brick have presented the past couple of years, including the choice of our final guest today, Jonas Kvam, as Builder of the Year 2017. that's a fairly big title to award to somebody.
It is, and we had a bit of debate about it, but we thought, we spend most of our spare time doing nothing but looking at Lego models and evaluating them and saying, is this worthy of being shared and being featured, and is this something that lots of people should see? So I think as a group, and we have a wide, and it's not like two guys sitting in a room. We've got what, 15 to 20 contributors. The numbers vary. Who all spend most of their time evaluating models and sort of saying, is this a great model that we should be featuring? I think that's a pretty strong group of people to then pick some models and say, you know what, these are the best things we've seen this year. And what we try to do, which is very difficult, is to make sure that it's not just biggest thing, or it's not, so we try to pick things that are representative of the breadth of the hobby, and all the different genres, all the different building styles, all the different themes, big ones, tiny little ones, everything in between. And I think we're a pretty, everyone's got a decent eye, otherwise they wouldn't be writing for the site. And so we think it's a pretty good group of people to make that claim. Now, are we the final arbiters of quality? Of course not. What we are saying is, this is the best stuff that we've seen. Yeah. And in our opinion, this is the best model of the year, and this builder has knocked it out of the park this year. And again, I think it's hopefully a nod to the people who are at the absolute top of the game.
So you write books and you blog, you even have a job, even though it's about whiskey. And in between, when you can find the time, you build. A lot of steampunk, as we've established, but also other things. And your design process is normally quite simple. Sit down and build.
Yeah.
No planning ahead.
No, planning ahead is not my forte. Just ask anyone I work with. I tend to just sit down and pick up bricks and put them together and see what happens. It's maybe slightly different. So it's very different for a show build. So if you're doing a big model, then I will tend to do quite a lot of sketching in advance. The sketches are terrible. They're, I'm not remotely artistic in that way, but do quite a lot of sketching and just to get proportions right. But even then, the build can totally change as it is being put together. As you find, I love when you're looking to build something and you're looking for a part, and then you find two pieces connected together by accident that just look interesting, and you're like, ooh, what can I do with that? And suddenly you're building something totally different than what you sat down to build. So yeah, I'm a bit haphazard, I'm not very organised.
Well, that's the appealing creative process there. Yeah, I get that. In your figure portfolio, there is even some neoclassic space.
Obviously.
And what is it with you British guys and classic space?
We're all just chasing Tim and Pete, Jez and Jason. There's for some reason, classic space, captured the hearts of British builders. For a lot of us, it was our first sets or amongst our very first. There's a very strong community of guys who build that stuff in the UK, and therefore, you're not a proper Lego builder, I would think, unless you build something in, blue and grey and with trans yellow, screens. You got to do it. It's a sort of rite of passage, and nobody comes. In my opinion, there's some absolute rock stars who build in that style, but you got to have a wee try every now and again.
Yeah. Also on figure, there's a suspicious amount of pictures of mocks that use particular pieces in various ways. You have participated in the Iron Builder contest 4 times, with 2 victories and 2 losses as results. I should explain to the audience, in case you don't know, Iron Builder is a concert where 2 builders go head-to-head for a month, using one given seed element in as many imaginative ways as possible. How do you respond to such a challenge?
With an awful lot of coffee and not much sleep. It is the single most stressful experience that you can go through as a builder, and every single time I've done it, I've said I am never ever doing it again. It's awful. Yeah. It's,
If you win, you have to, doesn't it?
well, yeah, but the thing that, well, that didn't used to be okay, but the thing that gets me about it is, it used to be, so the first time I did it, I think in a month I produced, it was something like 9 models. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty good innings, that's not bad. It's now just insane. It's like, anything less than 30 models, you're not trying. And these aren't little small models. People are producing massive things, and so there is, and you're, because you know that you're working, again, competing with someone who's got the same part as you. The horrible thought is you have a great idea for that part.
And you spend ages.
Well, you've got to kind of assume they're going to have that idea too. So then it becomes this burning indigestion to try and get that idea out, but done well and executed as well as it needs to be before they do the same. And a couple of times I was on the verge of putting out, right, get these photos done, I'll get that posted, and it's, I was thinking, this is pretty good. Bang, up comes pretty much the same use of the part by your competitor, and you're like, I can't use this model now, and I've spent hours doing it, and it is the same. I would heartily recommend it, but it is the single most stressful thing that I've ever done as a builder. It's awful.
Flickr isn't your only outlet. Lately you've posted some stuff on Instagram that cannot be found in your Flickr account, like your microscale Edinburgh and the Craig House whiskey distillery for Diallo Jura. Is that a conscious choice? And if it is, why do you find yourself drawn to Instagram?
So I use Instagram for work. There's a thriving bartender community and whiskey geek community on Instagram, and for work I have to engage with that. So Instagram's kind of essential for me, so I use it a lot for that. And as a result, you become more comfortable with the platform that you engage with the most. I love the photo editing tools. I think they're really intuitive, I think they're very good. What I don't like is the lack of, there's much less of a community feel, certainly on the Lego side than that, so no, Flickr is I think, where, well, certainly for me, it's where the Lego community lives. I'm less engaged with certain parts of the community. For example, I don't really spend that much time engaging with the technical side of the community. That's not my thing. But certainly for my, the sort of styles of building that I tend to engage in, it's mostly on Flickr. I hadn't realised I hadn't posted under on Flickr. I'll have to do that, won't I? So, but yeah, so sometimes Instagram's just handier and I'll post stuff on there, but no, Flickr's where the community lives. So.
You just touched on it. Your skills when it comes to presenting your builds, your own builds visually, in pictures are brilliant, and your graphics are quite advanced. So you obviously spend a lot of time on this. Were you good at this before you started building? Or is that something that has evolved?
No, you've looked at my first box.
Yeah.
The photos are awful. The presentation is terrible. It's one of the things that I've tried to do politely from a builder's brick point of view. So getting in touch with builders who've maybe made fantastic models, but the photography is terrible or the presentation isn't great. So and just maybe drop them a note and say, mate, this is a really good model, I would love to feature it, but the presentation's not fantastic or the photography's not great. Have you thought about maybe just try and give them some of the simple tips that a couple of people gave to me? So Guy Himmer, one of the reasons where we were, became friends was I was bemoaning the fact that I couldn't get good photos, and he basically sent me a bunch of really simple tricks and hints that just made my photography much better. And I know we should be able to say this is a great model, but you know what, if it's photoed on a crumpled bed sheet and the lighting's rubbish, and they've used the flash, and you can't see the details of the great model, we're not going to feature that. And so I think photography is a basic skill that if you, it makes your building better as well, because the more you share your stuff online, the more people will go, oh, this is brilliant, I particularly like that, and you start to understand maybe the things that make a model stand out. So I think presentation is hugely important, and sometimes I think we underestimate that how important just a really nice photo of the model is if you want to share it.
Yeah. Final question for you, Rod. Your steampunk harbour builds, Edison Landings and Tesla. One of them is in a hall. That's Edison Landing?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of, the ship is the same every time. I try to build different buildings around it.
The ocean changes a bit.
Yeah. That's not really building, it's just spelling.
But these are among your most well-known and impressive ones. The big things with lights and lava lamps, instant hits for people at exhibitions, especially the moving parts as well.
I'm a sucker for a cheap lighting effect.
Yeah, why not? If you were given an infinite amount of bricks, is a giant steampunk layout what you would probably build?
Not a layout, I would build a minifig scale version of the Nautilus from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is my all-time favourite book. And one side would be the outside, and then the other side would be cut away with all the compartments, and probably motorised elements and lighting elements. That's my kind of, when you have an idea to build something and it never goes away, even no matter how ridiculous it is. That's my one. So,
you should crowdsource that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming, Rob.
Thank you very much, man.
So my next guest is mostly known for building an enormous castle. Please welcome Alice Finch. So, can you hear all right? Is it okay? There's a lot of noise that we didn't ask for. So welcome to the show, Alice.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. I'd like to start off with your childhood. I know that you built with Lego, but what did you build and when did you stop?
Probably not a surprise that I built architecture. I don't remember any particular sets, only basic bricks, few slopes, couple windows. Mostly they were red. I don't know if that was what you experienced, but my brother and I had a name for the way you stack bricks for their offset, which is pretty standard in the building world now, but we call it catwalk. We just made up the term, but we thought that's what it was called. So now the joke is that my Lego building career started out with coming up with this absurd name of catwalk, meaning you just don't stack them exactly on top. So I stopped building probably when I was maybe 10 or 11. Started building maybe when I was 6 or so. And I'm basing that on reference to when my younger siblings were born, and I remember Duplo, and they would play with Duplo while I was building with Lego. And then I didn't really return to building until 2011. But interestingly enough, the very first Lego set I remember is the very first present that my now husband gave me. It was a tiny little Lego castle set with one little building with 2 brown doors and a knight and a ghost. And so my very first set, I still have it, was a present from Ryder, who is the supportive other half of this operation.
Right. There are many ways back into the grasp of the yellow minifig clause. Some, like my next guest, just never stopped building. Some, like my previous guest, accidentally stumbled across the Lego community online. Some are deeply into Star Wars, and some just get kicks. Those 2 last ones were the triggers for you, aren't they?
Yes. Before we had kids, we started buying the Star Wars set because we inevitably figured that at some point we would have kids and we would want the first Star Wars set. So we bought all the Star Wars sets years before we had kids.
It's a good excuse.
Yes. So we have a lot of Star Wars sets. Yeah. And then the second important thing is kids. My older son was reading the Harry Potter books and the official sets were being phased out. That was really the impetus for me to start building as an adult again. I've been to many of the places where the movie was filmed, and I had an idea in my head of what that really needed to look like in Lego brick form, particularly because in our household, the adventures that you have with Lego are just as important as the building. And so I wanted to build a great hall for Thorin, who is my older son, to play the Hogwarts Adventures, and so I started with that. And then it really accidentally, on purpose, became big.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you if you'd heard of Harry Potter or seen the movies at all. Because this started because you weren't perfectly happy with the original Lego Harry Potter sets.
So if you think back to the first wave of Harry Potter, the original castle was just a wall and half of a roof slope, which, having an architecturally focused mind, was not adequate to making it look like Hogwarts. I've eaten dinner in the dining hall of Christ Church College in Oxford, which is what they based the real set on, and I wanted it's got pictures all over the walls and a fireplace on the side, and the window looks exactly like the set, and I wanted it to look like that. And so I actually brought up pictures that I had taken in the hall and used that as the sort of research for the original model. But then I figured, well, if you're having a feast in here, where are the house elves? And then I had to do kitchens and etc.
So for BrickCon 2011, you brought a huge model of central parts of the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. And people were amazed, but you were nowhere near finished. So you came back in 2012 with your first finished mock as an AFOL, which measured about 4 by 4 meters and contained 400,000 bricks. Way to make an entrance, I would say. Can you tell us a bit about the building process and not least the race to get it done in time?
Yeah, so it was built in total about 12 months, over a year and a half. And I mostly built from after 9 p.m. until about 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning. I had 2 young kids at the time, and even though my brain was thinking about it, the actual building happened in the early hours of many, many nights. And really, it was, BrickCon is the first weekend in October. It was the summer before that where I realized, oh my goodness, I still have all of this acreage that I need to fill in. And that was sort of I had to go into turbo mode of staying up many, many nights. But I really don't plan, or at least at that stage, I didn't really do any planning ahead of time. This was literally my first mock as an adult, and didn't understand the concept of the necessity of it. So it really was just building and building and getting until the very last week.
And at some point you get to sort of a point of no return that you build sort of the framework and you have to finish everything else inside. You can't just say, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do that because it's building missing.
Right, and also it was a matter of running out of parts. There's a lot of sand grain in there, and I would order, 1,000 little 1x1 cones. And I thought, oh, surely that's enough to make a roof, right? I brick built it and then covered it with sand green cones. Well, the major tower for the stairway, that has 10,000 1x1 sand green cones in it. So it was sort of like, okay, I have this idea. I figure out what I want to do, and then, and I have not nearly enough parts. So you order it, and then you wait, and then you
that takes time.
Come back. Yes, exactly.
So 400,000 bricks, many of them in sand green, not the cheapest color, and about 150 minifigures, Harry Potter minifigures, not the cheapest kind of minifigures. What kind of money are we talking about there?
I try not to think about it. I remember the reaction of my parents, who didn't quite understand what this whole hobby was all about. And they thought I was a little bit leaning towards the crazy side of things.
I can understand why.
Yes, and so they thought, well, you're spending an awful lot of money on this. And I said, yes, this is actually much better than therapy. So this is creative, it involves my family, yes. And it took them actually seeing it in person. They came up for a weekend, and I left it out in my living room, and then there was this aha moment of, I understand. And so for me, the cost of it is, I don't actually know how much I spent on it, but part of that is I try not to pay attention to it because the value sort of in my own happiness and my own creative process was more important.
Yeah.
So.
I know you made a conscious decision not to build like a static model of Hogwarts. Yours was built to be played with. It has walls that open and roofs that lift off, so the two sons could actually enjoy it. Does it still exist?
Absolutely. It is in a storage unit in about 40 extremely large boxes. I wish there were better ways or more ways that I could display it because that is why I built it, is to sort of be viewed and played with. But it is actually so big that not every venue can accommodate it. So I've had many inquiries into, can you bring it to this con or that con halfway across the world? And as soon as I mention how much it costs to ship it, then we have to start over.
But what you did is, because it takes up about 40 boxes that you said, so that's probably why you didn't bring it here.
Yes.
But you have actually built a travel version.
I've actually built two more. So yes, I built a travel version. Last time I was actually in Skærbæk, I built a suitcase version. It takes up one large suitcase and it is the entire campus in micro scale with the lake. But I also built a third version, and that is what I call Hogwarts on a Shelf, because it is just about 48 studs long, and it literally is something you could put on a shelf. It's only maybe 16 studs deep. And this one is a completely different view because it's sort of halfway up the model is where land is, so half of it is underwater, and then the castle above it, because I realized the mermaids never got included, and so I built these tiny microscale mermaids, and there's a little Durmstrang ship and the whole thing. But that one I can keep up all the time.
So you became the Hogwarts lady, basically.
I do respond to that name.
Yes. So after having finished that, spending hours and hours every day over the last few months to get it done, you needed a break. And then you started on your second mock, which was a lot smaller, and you didn't even build it alone. It was a collaboration with fellow AFOL Dave Frank. So, of course, the model of Rivendell from the Lord of the Rings was much more manageable, containing only 200,000 bricks.
Yes.
Can you please elaborate?
So I met David a year previous to that. We'd actually showed up at our first LUG meeting at the same time. And in our conversation, we talked about things that we like to build and sort of our own geekdom preferences, and we happened to mention that we're both Tolkien fans. By the way, my son's name is Thorin, in case that indicates what level of fandom we're in. And we happened to both mention that we really like the Elvish world within Middle-earth, and so someday we'd like to build Rivendell. Well, a year later, we both finished pretty large models, and we were ready to start something new. We said, okay, let's do this. So we figured out approximately what was in the sort of in the realm of Rivendell, and then of course the new movie came out and they completely changed it, added lots more buildings, and so we modified it to accommodate sort of the old and the new. It is 32 48 base plates, and I did about 20 of them, I believe, and it was built in about 5 or 6 months. So also quite intense. I remember the night before BirdCon, I had 45 minutes of sleep, and I was so half awake that when the documentary team was going around interviewing people, they asked me a question, and my brain just isn't working today because I had had zero sleep for at least one night, and not very much previous to that. So
It's the kind of answer they really want.
yeah. Deer in the headlights, cannot think. Get back to you tomorrow.
Yeah, brilliant. Even though you had help from your family members in building Hogwarts, it must have been different to collaborate with another adult builder. How did that work for you both?
It was actually a really fantastic process. We have similar building styles in terms of our preference for architecture, but Rivendell was really a great collaboration. We each claimed particular buildings, but we also had established sort of style for what the windows were, the size and scale, and the fact that we wanted a lot of the buildings to be off stud and on angle. But really, I think where we truly collaborated the most was in the vegetation. There's a huge amount of plants on it, and we literally sat down. He brought his 2 boys, and I had my 2 boys, and we just built trees all day and tried to invent new ones, come up with ways that we could make it more interesting than just, oh, there's 250 trees on this. In fact, my younger son, Adrian, he invented what we call the Adrian tree that used these connectors. Because we had a lot of awkward spaces where we wanted a tree, but only maybe 4 studs wide to fit it in. So we came up with a lot of different ways to try and make it look interesting. If you look at the pictures, you'll notice that it goes from spring-colored trees on the left side to summer to fall on the right, so that we could use all of the colors of leaves that were available. Just sort of like saying, oh, cool, spring and summer.
You were interviewed by John and Joshua for Beyond the Break in 2013, at which point you mentioned having around 1 million Lego bricks in the house. By 2015, this estimate of yours had grown to between 2 and 3 million. In 2017, you mentioned 4 million. Is this where the supportive and understanding hospital comes in?
Yes, the room formerly known as the master bedroom is now the Lego room. That was his idea. Because it's the biggest room that's not the living room, and it enables all 3 of the active builders in the household to have our own surfaces and to have the storage for parts. And it is really hard to estimate part numbers. Those numbers are based on every time I get an order and I sort of have to evaluate, okay, here's how big it is, here's how much room it takes up compared to what I already have. And so the adjustment is, well, this is 100,000 bricks that I just ordered. How does it fit in with the stacks of little white drawers? So, yeah, definitely involves Reiner in the. He shares the philosophy that you can't have too many bricks, and so he doesn't ever mind when we fill yet another hallway or empty space with something brick related.
Good situation to be in, though. You share this house with your husband and your 2 sons, and Thorin also plays a big part of your website, Bimini Bricks.
Yes.
What made you decide to create a website, and what do you use it for?
It's actually used for many different things. One was I am pretty terrible at posting things, and sucker isn't always something when you're trying to share information with non-Lego people. It's not always the best way to share. So I created the website not only to put a few pictures of what I built, but also to create a place for his photos. He's turning 16 on October 1st, so he's still a minor. But because of his, he's in the documentary, he's actually the first person that you see in the documentary film. He is sitting in front of his model of Helm's Deep that he built, and my younger son takes his model of a bird and crashes right through the middle of it. But Thorin has built quite a few models, and we wanted to have a place for him to be able to share what he does in sort of a more user-friendly way. So Thorin is on there, but I also use the website for talking about some of the other issues that I've done more recently. I haven't built many things personally over the last couple years because I spent a lot of my time working with kids in schools and using Lego as a medium for talking about social justice issues, particularly equity and racism. And so most of my brick is sort of in transit dealing with middle and high school kids, and I'm starting to work in a juvenile jail in this fall when I get home to use brick to talk about things that we need to talk about.
Time is running away, but using Lego as a way into other stuff is also something that you do with the Women's Brick Initiative. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so the Women's Brick Initiative really has been an idea incubating over many years, partly because of my experience with building Hogwarts. And it really came to the 3 of us, myself, Shelley Corbett, who's a toy photographer, and Jacqueline Sanchez, who's here. She has all of her Lego jewelry here. The idea is that there is not always a smooth entry for women into the Lego hobby, and that there's a need for support and inspiration and a place for people entering the hobby and who are in the hobby already to land and to be able to be inspired. And we have found that there is a tremendous need for this, even in communities that don't necessarily know it yet. I've done workshops in 3 different countries so far, A good example of this is I was doing workshops in Hong Kong, and I was working with the ambassadors there, and I did 4 workshops in total. One of them was for women. And the ambassador said, we don't actually know if anybody's going to show up because we don't know if there are any women builders in Hong Kong. And of the 4 workshops, it filled up the first. In 6 hours, all 30 spots were gone. And when they came to the workshop where we were building and interacting, none of them had ever met each other before. So they were there, they were in the hobby, but they didn't have a place where they could connect and find other people in the hobby. And so that to me is a perfect example of why we need something like this to get people feeling comfortable to enter this hobby. We have a workshop tomorrow at 1 o'clock. I hope many of you are there.
Yeah, if you don't go to the talk show tomorrow.
That's fine.
Let me finish with a final question. You burst onto the AFOL scene with 2 amazing and gigantic builds. Will you build that big again? And what might be interesting enough to deserve your attention?
So as I said, I've put sort of my personal building aside for these last couple of years. But the light at the end of the tunnel for me is being able to get back into building, particularly something big. I have probably a couple thousand orcs in bins waiting to be put into battle. And for me, the next challenge that I really want to build is Minas Tirith, which is from the last book of Lord of the Rings. And part of the challenge there for me is the building of the city. It's a 7-layered city and it's round. And it also has height, so there's sort of structural challenges, but it's also a massive battle scene. And to make that, there's sort of action and interest in all of the minifigs that can have various little interactions. That to me is like the most massive challenge, right? There's structural and a whole lot of white. So I've got bins of orcs waiting to be put to good use.
Can't wait. Thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah, thank you.
The first guest, Eero Okkanen, please. Take this. I'll just lay this out so I'm not running super late. There's nothing after us in the tent. Ideally we'll be finishing right before 2, but if we run a little bit over and you have something you have to go to, then of course feel free to go, just do it quietly. And we'll try to not to run too much over, but it's interesting guests and cool questions, so hopefully it'll be interesting for the whole time. So, welcome to the show, Eero.
Thank you.
As I think you say in Finland, yeah. I know that when you grew up in Joensuu, you started out like many of us, probably with some Duplo bricks and some inherited items from your other family members. But can you remember any of your first sets when it comes to Lego system parts?
yeah, that's used a lot in Finland. I remember in the transport, it was a city set from maybe 91 or 92. It was released before sport, but I had it was a like truck with few Formula 1 cars. And there was actually a bit of offsetting. Its part of it was 5 slots wide, and I find that quite exciting as a kid because it was a 4 wide part and then a 1 wide part next to each other, and it was quite cool. And it has some play features. I mean, I'm not into like cars or Formula cars, but I like that as a kid
because that's the play features.
Yeah, and it was a big set for me at the time.
Yeah. It's about this size.
Yeah, maybe 4 wide.
So I'll stop dropping Google Translate with Finnish phrases into this interview. I just had to have some because I love the way the Finnish language just rolls across the tongue. I've read that your dark ages lasted about 6 months and happened when you were 9.
Yeah.
Can you explain?
Yeah. Children are weird, as you probably know. And I was a bilingual kid, and I had this bilingual piece of from head club. If somebody who knows bilingual parts. And you can make a quite easy connection with that one, which can be under sticking an axle into that place, and then it just can't be removed. And I make it. I was like confused, and I like felt a bit betrayed with that piece, and I was like, oh no, this can't be happening. And I was so shocked that I didn't play with Lego for a few months, and then I get back to system, and maybe a couple of months for that I get back to buy little parts again, and then I just took a knife from somewhere and remove the pieces. It maybe took 30 seconds or so, but that was a critical hit to my Lego builder heart.
So you became disillusioned with the Lego because you couldn't remove the parts?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was a shock.
I get that. But apart from that, you pretty much kept building. When did you discover the online Lego community?
In 2007, I joined Eurobricks and all Finnish Bionicle community and Brickshop and started posting my models. And I joined LUG in 2008, and we had our first event in 2009. So I was quite young, I was 13. So I've been in the community for very long for my age.
Yeah. I have only ever met one Finnish AFOL before. We figured out his name probably.
Maybe.
Yes, I think that's him. But it was at Steam in the UK a few years ago,
Yeah.
and as I have traveled quite a bit to Lego conventions, I assume your fellow countrymen don't really do that so much. Which means we don't necessarily know, we as an audience don't necessarily know that much about the Lego scene in Finland. Can you tell us a bit about Palikapakko?
Yeah, Palikapakko
Coolest
is our
Lego name out there.
Okay. Yeah, we are quite active. We have several exhibits a year. All our events are open to public. We have some after hours activities, but mostly just exhibiting creations for people. We have like local vendor which sells new sets and used bricks, and they have been organizing events for some years, and there have been lots of those during the last 2 years all around Finland in some small towns and big towns, and we are having the biggest event right now in Helsinki. So we have 50 LUG members, maybe 30 that I know, and most of the LUG members are builders, or the active ones are builders at least, but also in events there are lots of children and families bringing their sets and our models. So they are all around Lego happenings, not just AFOL conventions.
Yeah.
And they're quite popular, and there are quite a lot of them, so I think that's one reason why there's not so much Finnish people in the international events, because they are quite busy with our own events. Of course, there's also like Baltic Sea, which makes traveling here a bit trickier than some others like German or Swedish.
And probably also language, because Finnish language is very different from most other European languages.
Yeah, well, we have got used to that, and Finnish people speak English quite well. Of course, there are some older LUG members who don't have such good English skills, so I think that might be less easy to them to travel here. But I think most of them would do just fine.
What you are arguably most famous for within the international Lego community are your impressive figures. What is it that appeals so much to you about building people?
Well, it's sort of not very common on this thing, and it's of course a challenge to make living organic things and clothes which are like soft and bendy, and like, for example, the joints are hard to do because if you are trousers you have like cloth all over, but you have some gaps with plastic, and it's a difference mostly, but also because I have been doing it for quite a lot, so I have been developing it, but I enjoy it very much, and well, there's something very interesting in like people and how their character and appearance can be made in the Lego form.
Because there's a lot of variation of style among these builds, from sleek and graceful female figures to big, bulky, armored fantasy warriors, busts of funny cartoon-like characters. What kind of figures do you enjoy building the most, and what kind of different challenges do building different figure types present?
Well, I like variety. I don't, in a way, like maybe doing too many similar builds in a row, but sometimes it's not so serious really. Like the female characters, which are quite graceful and elegant, that I'm trying to do, they are probably the farthest from your average Lego brick thing or thing you expect to see for a Lego brick creation. So I enjoy that contrast, and also trying to find the uses for weird pieces in those. And And in other figures, for example, I like really building beards and hairs and mustaches and things like that. And like my more humorous figures usually start from the head. But for example, these female figures might start from anywhere, like from a feet or leg or jacket or something.
Yeah. You like building beards, have you considered building yourself?
Yeah, I have. But I haven't got into it. I had one glass blow figure which was a bit of a like self-portrait, but not really. And I recently made an oil painting of a self-portrait. So.
Okay.
And you know, my studies in first year, I had to make a self-portrait too. So I've been on those, but not Lego for it.
Does the diversity mean also that the inspiration for a figure can come from pretty much anywhere?
Yeah, of course. Maybe nowadays, a bit over half of my figures are just own characters. So the inspiration really comes from anywhere, but usually not from any one particular source. I like to mix things, and I like to take pieces and use them as a like the seed part or the beginning thing on a creation. So yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned, talking about parts, you mentioned Bionicle earlier.
Yeah.
You use Bionicle parts in quite a few of these figures, and while there's a substantial Bionicle following in the US, which means that most US conventions have a few Bionicle figures on display, at European shows they seem to be much rarer, and even combining Bionicle and system parts like you do, it seems unusual. I suspect that most of the people here look at Bionicle parts as weird stuff that is difficult to connect. But what do these pieces add to your builds?
Well, Bionicle parts are interesting. They're very hard to use. You should not overlook Bionicle builders because it's much harder than system building and
Challenging.
Yeah, I've been moving to more system because you can usually do the same shapes of Bionicle parts with some system parts, but it's easier because these Bionicle parts always have those annoying knobs or things in places you didn't want them to be, and they have maybe worse connection points. But they also, some of them look very interesting in a way that can be captured in a Lego form. There are some marble pieces and some transparent pieces and some like flame pieces and sort of like that. And I think it's like raises the build over the average if it has in as its beginning point parts something unusual and not much think about by the community.
Yeah, it's probably also there's a lot more organic shapes as well and curves to some of the Bionicle parts.
Yeah, they are newer action figure parts from the CCBS system. Most of the old Bionicle parts are very like chunky and greebly and very complicated looking. But they are nice somewhere, and the newer like shell pieces are good for some knees and sleeves and sort of that. A bit change for the usual like sleeve shape. It might be a stacked round bricks. So if you stuck a shell on the end, it looks like broken.
Yeah.
But like.
Yeah. Most of your characters originate in fiction. Books, movies, games, and so on, but you also built a few representations of real people. There's Hans Langset, a Norwegian with the world's longest beard. And then because you're a music person, you built one of your favorite bands, Circle, which is now in the Lego house, which you might have seen on Thursday. How is it different to build a real person compared to a character?
Well, a real person you of course look like the portrait of the person or some video material or whatever. I took a lot of pictures about Circle or Circle as they are said in Finnish on a gig like a couple of years ago, and then I just wanted to capture the proportion of the face, like the distance between nose and eye and mouth. It's very important, especially the eyes and the eyebrows. It has very much character because
even on this scale.
When human recognize other human, I think they mostly use this area with eyes and eyebrows. So that's very important, and it's also a place where there's lots of emotion. So capturing the like how they look on a gig is also important at the Circle project.
Facial expression.
Yeah. And also the posture, like one of the guitarists, Jan Westerlund, he's quite hunched, usually when he's playing a guitar. otherwise too. So I added the additional joint on the stomach so he can punch a bit. And also he's quite skinny, so his like hip joint was only forced. That's why to capture the. And then there was the drummer Tomi Leppänen, who's also called Leppästick because he always sits very straight and he's like a stick. He's thin, and so I didn't want to add very like natural handshake pose. He's just bricks over bricks. And someone criticized that on Flickr actually, and I think it's logical, but if you see him playing drums, I think he looks pretty much like that.
Like the real.
Yeah.
Have you ever been able to show any of your builds to the real picture, people depicted?
Well, not in person, but Skærbæk has seen them up and they use it as their Facebook header, so they like it.
They use a picture of yours on their Facebook page?
On the main header.
Okay.
And I'll send them a picture about it in the Lego house too, if they're interested.
Oh, that's nice. One of your latest characters differs quite a lot from the others you built in that it's a robot. Hubot, to be specific, the robot that puts together the posts about site statistics on Brickset.
Yep.
And it selects the random set of the day, or not so random when it comes to clickets. But nobody knew what Hubot looked like until your version won the contest hosted by the robot's namesake, the real Hugh, who runs Brickset. Can you tell us how you approached that challenge?
Well, robot seemed a logical choice for a bot. Then you know that these like two main teams of home electronics. You have been selling closely, so you might know that. There are like masculine black sleek electronics things and then soft rounded white electronics things around in the house, and I went with this white round thing because I think Hubot who give us random toys and stuff should be quite a friendly looking.
Yes.
And then I wanted to have something like pixel-like appearance with those big round eyes because I think they're fantastic. They have the most maybe characteristic Lego pieces ever. The googly eyes, so I gave him a couple of these, and then I wanted to include this British logo, and I thought the brain would be like the nervous center of the robot, so I put it under a dome. I experimented with different dome pieces. They need to go long ones, the domes from those flying things, but I settled with the button for dome piece. And then he got the tracks because I really had no idea legs which would be post-red, and the tracks felt nice, and I'm especially happy with boats that have caps in them. They give the same white round look, and they're my favorite pieces maybe too. And then the Halbot has his white version, which is based on the version from Calvin and Hobbes comic. One classic.
The card.
Yeah, but I wanted it not to be too like a stereotypical robot character, so I gave him something very different from the aesthetics of the robot thing. Just some kid's chariot with felt quite natural with the Lego things.
And there are some sets in it.
Yeah, that's it. And it's a fun thing because I had one of those sets of printed tiles, and I don't really use Bricklink, so it was going to have only one set, but then I went to event in Finland and there was a big table of random pieces and I found like 6 of those tiles.
Well, that's cool. You should check it out. The robot, it looks brilliant and super friendly. On Flickr, in addition to your characters, you mainly posted minifigs, so-called fig barfs, groups of custom minifigures built for regular Lego pieces, and builds from one particular topic, which is quite logical considering you're currently studying in Tampere to become an architect. You build modular buildings. But not just any modulars. Your modulars are intricate and ornate designs, mainly in Art Nouveau style, which allows you to build very elaborate facades. What do you enjoy so much about the modular buildings?
Well, I'm into Art Nouveau, or you can still the architecture on the turn of the 19th century. No, 20th century, of course. So, some of in my hometown, and the Finnish style is quite different from what you usually expect for that style. It's not so elaborate, it's very strong and sturdy and like maybe even castle-like in a way. And I study architecture, so I have to take granted all the technical details and real life living things. And for different, I just like to do some free form, like completely free from any real things, architectural things. And it's these historical buildings. Because in real life, they can be done in a way they were made over 100 years ago, because the expanse of work and the materials is so different. They are based on the handicraft mostly, which is so expensive these days that it would be just too expensive to build houses like that. But in Lego it's possible, and I can like fulfill my dream homes better in Legos than in school projects or real buildings. And they really come alive with little mini-fix on them. It gives them the scale, and my modulars don't have like floors or back walls or anything, because I'm focusing all my pieces to the things that are actually visible for people.
But they are all the more detailed for it, the facades. Do you get to apply what you learn through your studies when you build modulars?
Well, not much, because the architect philosophies are quite far from those things. But of course there's some what's the word? Not actual thinking, but you know. That's the word. That's the word. Thing with massing and like arranging things. And putting windows and so on.
Aspects. I have to ask you also about a certain Lego piece, or rather a Duplo piece that we also talked about yesterday on the talk show, the big green Duplo grass, because the builder who was beaten narrowly by Jonas, my guest yesterday, in that iron builder round was you. How did you react to being given a big weird piece like that as a seat part, and that you had to include in your mock for a whole month?
I was maybe slightly shocked, because many of these parts in Iron Builder have been very nice, very convenient,
easy to use.
Easy to use. This wasn't, but I had said to Guy Himber that surprised me, so I couldn't only blame myself.
Regretted that afterwards.
Yeah, but many people have said that it has been a great round, so no bad feelings. But I just had to make a list of ideas. I have it a piece afterwards in one lecture actually. Just because there are not so many options, and at the time I was finishing a big layout of modular buildings for a local museum. It was 11 buildings in it, so I didn't have like almost any basic bricks in big quantities in one color, so it
makes it even worse.
Made it blending the huge piece in a creation was even more difficult, because I just couldn't use a small part of the creation.
You have to build something around.
It had to be the defining factor of the piece.
What does a thing like that do to your creativity?
Well, it was cool, I can't complain really. I mean, you can be creative with when you have all kinds of pieces there, and you can do what you want. I don't know if restriction really, in the long run, makes you a better builder. But
then again, also the added pressure of having to build something again and again.
Yeah, of course. But it was I think it was really big fun. Completely. I used it as a some sort of plant in at least 3 pieces, which is not maybe the most original one, and twice as hair, because I'm a character builder too. But it was a nice time. And I made 10 builds, which was my goal.
Not too bad with a piece like that. Final question now. You have described yourself as an artist who just happens to have chosen Lego bricks as one of his media, as you said, you also paint. And I'm sure we'll all agree that you're certainly an artist, but does this artist know what he will do next?
Well, I have at least 3 or 4 builds that have been finished and photographed and posted, so you can accept some large scale speeder bikes. I have one in display in hall. 1 or 2, I don't know. And they are in the same style and scale with riders, so I might do some kind of driving contest with this, and it's going to be quite a big. I'm not doing all the scenery and things, but some supporters and cheerers and a hot dog seller and things like that. I'm also thinking now, when I have my circle banding in Lego House that I should make a Black Sabbath's original lineup because they're having a 50th anniversary of their two classic albums, Black Sabbath, Paranoid, next year. So that could be nice. It's 4 figures and 3 of them should have like big beards, so it's going to be fun.
Perfect challenge.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming in. Please welcome on stage Paul Hetherington. Welcome. Hello. So, welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. I could ask you, like I've asked my other guests, if you can remember your first Lego set, but seeing as you've been an AFOL for longer than any of the others, I think instead I'll ask you if you can remember the first set you bought for yourself as an AFOL, because that happened about 28 years ago.
Yes, about 1992. I was kind of stalking Lego stores, sort of, I wasn't quite ready to make the leap to actually buy a toy as an adult. I thought, back in those days it wasn't really normal.
We've all been there.
Yeah, but finally I broke down and I bought 2 M-Tron sets.
Oh.
Yeah, the vector detector and I think the pulsar charger, 2 little sets, and then that quickly led to the rest of the M-Tron line and then the Blacktron line, and I haven't really stopped since.
Okay, I'm going to take that spider out of your hair. Because there seems to be a problem with his tent. So, yeah. So
thanks for saving my life.
Yes, there are no more there. So I don't think they're venomous. So you were already an AFOL back in 91, 92.
You may have a spider.
I do. So great.
Okay, we're
yeah, great. You were already an AFOL back in 91, 92, but because there was no such thing as the internet really, you thought you were the only one. Until you met somebody at a garage sales in Vancouver just around the turn of the century. What happened?
Yes, I used to do garage sales. My parents were antique collectors, and so I grew up and they taught me the fine art of sort of scavenging and buying something for low and selling it for high. So I went to a garage sale and there was a huge pile of Lego instructions, and this is going to be amazing. I'm going to get all this Lego for really cheap. And it turned out it was just the instructions, because this guy, his name was Kevin, and he was selling on Bricklink. So I learned about Bricklink that day.
Oh, expensive.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't jump into Bricklink much. I was kind of hesitant because I had sort of this garage sale attitude, way back 28 years ago. But of course now I'm a huge Bricklink fan and buyer. That he introduced the VLC to me, which was fairly new. It was probably been going for about a year at that point. It took me about 6 months to actually go to a meeting, because when you collect Hot Wheels or other toys, you don't really, at that time you didn't really go to clubs. I think that's the magic of how the internet really changed everybody. We connected everybody, which now I'm on a talk show in Skærbæk. Thanks to him, I was in the VLC and I haven't looked back.
Yeah, so the VLC, the Vancouver Lego Club, was founded in February 2000. So it's a relatively early lug, and a lot of the VLC activity in the early days, like many other lugs, revolved around trains.
Yes.
Is that where you started experimenting with motorization?
Kind of. I was already into N-scale trains, mini tricks and Arnold, and so.
Did you collect some toys?
Yeah, I was getting back into toys at that time, and definitely, it got me building. My first creations, sort of larger creations, were for a train show, VLC, and then it was kind of that first taste of displaying your work in public and getting a positive reaction. Our first show was on the news. That was a huge thing at that time.
Yeah.
Because once again, it was early days. This was all new. So that kind of lit the fire inside me, and I've been creating ever since.
So the reason I asked you about this motorization is that a recurring theme within your mocks is movement, lots of movement, which is of course always a hit with the crowds and conventions. When you start building something, do you start thinking early on about how you can add functions to it?
Yes. Yeah, when early on, I decide whether a creation is going to be motorized or not, depending on what kind of story I want to tell or what reaction I want. The motorization usually dictates how thick the base is, if I need to hide motors underneath, and also how much time it's going to take to build it, because it does take extra time to figure out the gearing ratios. I try and make all my movements. I gear them down as opposed to using a 9-volt train controller to either slow them. That's kind of cheating. I like to crank those train controllers and have all the automation run at the right speed. So a bit of planning with that.
So the technology found in Lego sets today is a lot more advanced than the technology found in the train sets from the early 2000s. Do you keep up? Do you use Mindstorms, for example? How advanced do you want your models to be?
Not very advanced.
As simple as possible.
As simple, so I can understand them. I've reluctantly, come into the iPhone age and all that. My favorite is actually Control Center, which was from about late 90s, right around 2000, I believe, maybe earlier. They had a big black dinosaur set. And these things are amazing because I can understand them. They have a record and play function. You can control 3 different motors and basically sequence them. You record like a 20-second sequence and then it'll loop it. So it looks like Mindstorms are operating some of my creations, but really it's a beautiful old control center from
old programming,
1998 or so.
That's right. And do you know how many functions or moving things you managed to cram into one display piece?
Oh gosh, probably the most would be Joker's Funhouse.
I would have thought so.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think there's 7 or 8 motors in that one, and maybe 15 different automations. That one really comes alive. What I discovered in that one was if you make most of the figures move, the ones that aren't moving really stand out. Which is fine if the story you're telling is that figure would be standing still, then you're fine. But so that's why I went into motorization overkill on Joker's Funhouse.
Another thing that a lot of your builds have in common is size. From your huge Mardi Gras display through your Lego Gaga concert stage to the first build of yours that I really noticed, the Joker's Funhouse, which the presenters on one of Discovery Channel's TV shows gushed about for more than a minute.
That was
how do you end up building such big things?
Gosh, I think because I was into Lego as a creator before, Lego clubs and that, I was inspired by Legoland. And the world, the Lego show or the world show that we used to tour around. So they had automation in their displays. Legoland, of course, has lots of automation, and I just thought, well, I would do Legoland make creations on a smaller scale. And I had a lot of Lego from doing garage sales, so having bricks was never really an issue. So my brain I can't stop. I had a small idea and then it grows and it gets bigger. And
so deciding when it's enough is the problem.
That deadlines work well for that. Lego conventions have saved me on that because usually there's I'll give myself 2 months, and then there's a BrickCon's always in October in Seattle, so that's usually the one I used to build for. And whatever I've done by October 3rd, that's what's going to the show.
Okay, so you also build in a variety of scales, even though the things end up big. You've done some giant figures, Milan scale, of course, minifig scale, micro scale, even a big Fabuland fun fair with a Fabuland train running around it, and that one even combines scales because it has a giant truck going down in the middle of it. What kind of challenges do the different scales bring?
I guess that comes into the storytelling aspect, partly that, and then for instance, the Fabuland display does have a large, sort of British lorry, and really I couldn't decide if I wanted to do a Fabuland layout or a big lorry. And so I got my gears going, and I did both, and then slowly the story of Fabuland, came to be. The story is that when Lego essentially fired, Fabuland in 1989 by canceling their line, poor little figures had nowhere to go, so they found an old abandoned truck in a farmer's field, and for a while life wasn't very fabulous. But of course, most of their sets are, fun fairs and lots of post offices. So what else would they do but build a fun fair on an old abandoned truck? And life is fabulous again.
Yeah. So, one of your own favorites among your own creations came together a year after the Fabuland build. A giant surrealist steampunk sculpture called Unchain My Heart.
Yes.
This has a very particular and surrealistic story to it, and this is also something that ties quite a few of your builds together. There's a deeper meaning behind them, whether it's that steampunk love story, or a build that's about being environmentally conscious, or abstract pieces of art that deal with what goes on in our minds. It's creating a backstory, an essential part of a build for you.
Yes and no. I mean, I've done both. When I first started out building, I would just sort of recreate real-world objects like train stations and trains, and kind of cut my teeth, on doing that and learning how to recreate and get a sense of scale and proportion and color usage right. And then slowly that morphed into coming up with my own stories and then getting more into the artistic side. For instance, like the Unchain My Heart, that one is the robot. In this case, it's a big chrome steampunk robot, and it represents this little guy inside, and it's his protection from the outside world. He's an introvert, and he's single, but he would like to meet a girl and fall in love. So he wants to free his heart from the robot so that he can meet a girl who's coming across the sands of time, which is represented by the tan bricks over a checkerboard pattern. And in this case, the checkerboard pattern represents kind of his life experiences, all the moves that you make in your life. It's like a chess game. And he's got a little wine bottle and a wedding ring, so if you can free his heart, he'll meet the girl and fall in love.
Deep.
Very deep.
Yeah, very deep.
Yeah, but that's what I love.
Yeah.
And that one seems to really resonate with people. People seem to like Unchain My Heart more than Joker's Funhouse sometimes. That's some of the shows that we go to, which is pretty cool.
You obviously love your Batman.
Yeah, actually.
You love your Joker. Yes, okay. So I mentioned Joker's Funhouse earlier, and then you built the Batman vs. Joker Gotham Theatre Showdown, which was named Lego Creation of the Year in 2016 by Rod and the Brothers Brick. What did that feel like?
That was extremely cool. So thank you. From my perspective, it was a surprise because there was no announcement. Just one day, my Flickr started getting a lot more views. And what's going on here? And I went on to Brothers Brick, as I often do, and I've been nominated. This is amazing. I didn't even know they did this. I think it was the first year that they did that competition. And ended up a week later they announced the winner, and it was me, and that was cool. The great thing about that is it led to them doing an interview with me, which was right around the time I was Brick University contacted me and was interested in having some of my models come down to be on display at their shows. So it was like this great piece of free PR. Thank you, Brothers Brick.
Your first Lego convention was the very first BrickCon in Seattle in 2002.
Yes, I was physically there as a public, which was kind of a common story. Most staples sort of check out conventions before they commit to like 3 days of hanging out with everybody.
Yeah.
And then once you do one, you're hooked for life.
But this convention, that's a fly, not a spider. BrickCon is the convention that more than any other has been the one where you turn up with amazing stuff that blows people's minds. Out of 17 BrickCons so far, you've run away with the Best in Show award 6 times.
5.
Five.
Well, one was Rick's Cascade,
Oh, okay, yeah.
which is important.
Okay, but what gives you the most joy? Winning awards or talking to people about your creations and shit?
Probably. I mean, talking, winning is cool. The thing about winning is it sort of ups your profile. Without the support of people in Rickon and Rick's Cascade and Rick Can, I wouldn't be here. People wouldn't possibly know about my work as much. So yeah, it creates a bit of a buzz, as far as people hearing about you. But I mean, I've never built to win awards. I think that's a path to unhappiness.
Yeah, it's a bonus.
Yeah, exactly. My love is the creation.
Yeah.
And then there's that bonus of once you release it into the wild, and you get people's reaction. To see people get inspired and excited about what you created is a very good feeling.
There's a picture of you on your Flickr, of you and most of your huge builds. And you're difficult to spot in that picture. You actually keep most of your creations intact. And I'm guessing one of the reasons you can allow yourself to do that is your status as a featured artist for the big Universe shows, because they must tie up an enormous number of parts.
Yes.
Let me just get that.
No? Nope.
That's not.
Yeah, that's there. This go down in history as the most spider
Yeah.
interview.
It should be Spider-Man, not Joker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It really is thanks to the dad's basement that all these models, I was able to keep them. And once again, from doing garage sales and being basically a Lego fanatic, I had a lot of Lego. And that kind of validated the reason why, to my friends, why I had that much Lego. Like, they're like, oh, I understand, you build these big things. It's okay, you're not just a hoarder, Nothing wrong with hoarding, by the way, but so thanks to that space, Brick Universe contacted me and their first question was, do you actually have all those creations? And I was able to say, yes, I do. And their response was, okay, we gotta talk. And then the rest is sort of history that, now I tour the universe.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
You are quite a prolific builder. In 2015 alone, as far as I can see from your Flickr, you built at least 5 different models that have piece counts in the thousands and some undoubtedly in the 10,000s. And yet you say you find it difficult to start new projects?
Yes. I have no shortage of ideas in my head, but I procrastinate, I would rather clean the bathtub, or I can't start building unless the house is really clean. I don't know if that is like, does anybody else out there have that? Or am I alone?
You have to do everything else first.
Sue Ann is with me and the rest of you have very dirty houses, right? Basically, I don't think about Lego all the time and I don't build all the time, so it's almost like that is a separate compartment in my mind. And so I have to go through a process of having a clean house, go into the Lego room, there has to be music on, and if I can do that, then I probably will start creating, especially if there's a deadline. If all those factors are not in place, all ain't built.
This is your first time in Skærbæk. This is your first time in Europe.
First time in Europe.
Yeah. One of the reasons you're here is, of course, is cultural. The other is that you installed a number of your big models in the Lego house on Wednesday. Called We Built This City. A very big and colorful bunch of buildings with a robot in the middle of it, which is working on building the city. How does it feel to have something on display there for the next year?
Incredible. Nothing can really prepare you for Lego house. The physical space and it's like the cosmic meeting point between the universe and Dylan and all the fans. Huge honor. I think so excited. Not only did I get to come to Europe, I got to go to the Lego house. We got to set up creations, on a closed day and see the little bit of a private tour. And the so grateful to be there. I'm still on cloud nine.
Yeah. We're getting towards the end, but I have to also ask you quickly about, because like Jonas, who was one of the guests on the talk show yesterday, you managed to get a model successfully crowdfunded in the Bricklink AFOL Designer Program. What was that experience like?
That was cool. You know, like, hello, childhood dream to have a Lego set, right? You know, it's the journey's, it's kind of an official Lego set, kind of a Bricklink set.
Probably the closest thing you could get to
Yeah.
Lego without being employed.
Yeah. I mean, the decisions were made, you know, in the Lund, and yeah, the interesting thing was they asked. We were at BrickCon last year, and Bricklink hosted a session, kind of an information session, to encourage people to submit builds. And you know, I hadn't really considered doing it because I never used an online designing program. Pretty much everything I build is in the brick. And so there's a bit of intimidation about, well, if I have to submit it, I have to learn this program. But you know, they offered some food, and I was like, okay, well, they've given me food, maybe I should like submit a design, and which I ended up doing. So within a year, I had the set in my hand, you know, along with 12 other designs, and it's really cool. I'm amazed that they could go from asking for designs to having them set in your hand within a year. You know, I mean, to people outside the process, you know, maybe there was some people maybe wanted their sets in their hands a little bit quicker, but I still think it's a remarkable feat. I'm extremely proud to have been part of that.
Final question for you, Paul. You've been around for most of the AFOL era. What's the biggest change you think the community has gone through in that time?
Oh gosh, you know,
I thought I'd end on an easy one.
yeah, this is easy. Let's get philosophical. For me, the biggest, I've never been like a director in a club. I've always been a member of the VLC, but and there's always politics at every club. You know, as I travel, you hear about things.
Yeah.
So I mean, like that's probably a challenge for a lot of clubs. For me personally, the biggest challenge was like, we're like, Paul, aren't you over yet? But the color changes back in 2003, because that still affects my sorting system. You know, it's still like, is that new gray? Is that old gray? Yeah.
Well, the biggest changes.
The biggest changes. Well, yeah, you've kind of gone from. I mean, I can only speak from a North American perspective. I'm from Vancouver, Canada, and we've had sort of invitations from the Lego stores when they first opened in the area. You know, Lego fans were quite involved. There was lots of volunteer opportunities, and now slowly, as there's more stores and more AFOLs, I think logistically they've had to shut some of those doors. So in a way, I think it's just ever evolving. I wouldn't even say it's better or worse. It's just that, you know, like now there's Lego House. We didn't have that, you know, 2 years ago. Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing change.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm the wrong person to ask that question, but I would say it's ever evolving, and it's amazing that Lego supports the fans as much as they do, even though there have been periods where we've had more support, but you know, still just grateful, and you know, logistically I can understand why they maybe don't have the resources to, because the fan base is so much larger than it was 10 years ago. There you go, rambling answer.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming, Paul. My final guests for today have traveled the least of all the people on my talk shows yet. Please welcome to the stage, Lasse and Annemette Westerkamp. Yeah, on the list for next year is a staircase.
Yes.
So I'll give you this, and you will have to share it between you.
Yes.
So, welcome to the show, both of you. I'd like to start with Lasse.
Yes.
Because you are the reason why Annemette started building with Lego. I know you didn't have a dark age, but have you always been as interested in building as you are now?
Yes, I have been building with Lego bricks all my life. As a child, I just followed the building instruction. I did not build my own creations as I do now. When I built a Lego set, I put it on the shelf and then I played with the minifigs. But it changed around 2009 when I was 14 years old. I built my first mock. It was a haunted house with ghosts and skeletons. And then I found out it was much more interesting to build my own creations instead of just following the building instruction.
Yeah.
And I still build sets sometimes, but I prefer building my own creations.
Do you remember the first set you had? Which one that was?
I was maybe 1 year old when I got my first Lego set. It was Lego Primo, and later I also had Lego Duplo. In 2001, when I was 6 years old, the first Lego Bionicle came. And as a child, Lego Bionicle was my favorite toy to play with.
Really?
Yes, but today I'm a little ashamed about it. I no longer like Bionicle. Today I prefer to build with real Lego bricks with studs.
Okay. That's good we have established that. Do you know how many Lego sets you own now?
No. I don't collect Lego sets any longer. I still have my collection of old Lego sets from the 1950s, 60s and 70s. But when I buy modern sets, I only buy them to use the bricks to build my own creations. And then sometimes I also buy Lego sets to get the minifigs. I like minifigs very much, and I'm a minifig collector. I have more than 3,000 different minifigs in my collection.
That makes good. I also really like the minifigures. I know that you were named Nerd of the Week by an engineering magazine in September 2007 when you were 11 years old. 12 years old, yes, okay. So it's no big surprise that you like Lego, but Anameta, the year before that, in 2006, you both went to a Lego exhibition hosted by the Danish Lug, Big Pen, and that turned out to be a very important experience. What was it that made you realize that this was something that not just Lasse, but also you would start spending most of your time on?
In the beginning, I was just a mother who wanted to do the best for my son.
Closer.
Just a little closer to you. Yeah.
In the beginning, I was just a mother who wanted to do the best for my son. He loved Lego, so we went to Lego exhibitions. And for the first many years, it was only for Lasse that I went to those Lego exhibitions and other AFOL events. But in 2010, we decided that we also want to exhibit. It looks fun, and I've seen all the other adults they could build, so why not me?
Yeah.
And I want to participate in the Lego World Cake. So then we both decided that now we will build months, and then the changed.
Yeah. So you joined the Lug shortly after this and became an AFOL, and I guess that meant that the brick collection went from being Lasse's to Lasse's and Anameta's. What was the first set you bought for yourself?
It took some years. It was Lasse's collection in the beginning.
Okay.
It changed when we started to build mocks, because then I need to buy bricks for the mocks, and Lasse couldn't afford them. He was just a kid, so I also need to buy for him. The first set I got, which was mine, was Martin Street. But I don't think I would have bought it at that time, but I heard with a Lego event in a shopping mall, and then I have learned it. But later I bought the big version.
Okay, so the modular buildings.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe you did start building mocks. That's what, as you said, that was the big change. Did you start building together right away?
We have always helped each other. When we are building, we are sitting in the same room at the same table. And we don't have space enough to build on two big layouts at the same time. So when we are building a big layout, we have to build it together because we don't have space enough.
You have to collaborate.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you collaborate? Do you share the building work evenly, or is one of you expert on one thing and the other expert on other things?
When we build together, I think
Closer. Yeah.
when we build together, I do the planning, or make sure that we have done the planning. I'm looking very much into the overall expression of the building and the colors. I look very much into the colors, which colors are we going to use for the layout, and make sure that we agree about what we're going to build before we start. Lasse is much better to the stuff on top techniques, on building techniques, and he knows all the Lego elements and which color they're made in.
Yeah.
And he loves minifigs, so he always put the minifigs on the layouts and make those small scenes and make it interesting to look at. I may be the most creative one. I always have a lot of ideas. Sometimes I have too many ideas, less things. And it had happened more than one time that I have started building a lot on the planning, and then I have problem with a building technique, and I say, oh, Lasse, can you help me with this building technique? And then he had taken over, built what I asked for, and also the rest of the building.
Okay.
Because it was so interesting when I had started.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you have done several models together. I also note the difference in the mocks when you build separately. Lasse, you seem to have a big interest in history and architecture. Is that where a lot of your inspiration comes from?
Yes, I'm very interested in history and historical architecture. I have also built modern architecture sometimes, but I prefer to build old architecture.
Which is very clear from what is on display in the hall.
Yes, I like to build creations which teach history. Yes, and this year in Skærbæk I have some buildings with me. I have built 21 buildings in 21 different historical architectural styles. I have 18 of them with me here in Skærbæk this year. Each model is built on just one base plate. Instead of building a big layout in just one specific style, I decided I want to build many small buildings in many different historical architectural styles. I did that because I wanted to build as many different styles as possible.
Yeah. You have also built some very interesting models with a lot of compartments or different scenes, like the history of the world that you showed here in Skærbæk a few years ago, the life of Jesus, which was here last year, along with the fairy tales of H.C. Andersen, which was a collaboration. These are all big hits with the audience it shows. What do you think makes these kinds of models so interesting to people?
They all tell a story. They tell a well-known story, so people can recognize the story. And many of my models also has a part of education in it. So when people are looking at my creations, the parents can teach their children about history or some of the other things, and the life of Jesus and Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales.
Yeah, that's really good. Your specialty, Annette, seems to be commenting on society, often in abstract ways, building mocks that make people think. Your latest work, for example, is on display here. 4 family members on their smartphones while sitting at the dinner table. And your previous big piece was a jigsaw puzzle with scenes where minifigures in various ways struggle to fit in. What kind of response do you get when you show these at exhibitions?
When I show this compared with other models, the comments are more like, oh, this is art, this is real art, and they think they are different from the other models.
Yeah. Do you think it sort of they can relate to what you're showing?
Yes, I show a problem, not because I have a solution for the problem, but they recognize the problem.
Yeah. I have to mention in particular the piece that you exhibited here in Skærbæk a few years ago, Lego Fan in Sad City. For those in the audience who haven't seen it, it's a completely monochrome city scene with where everything is black, white and grey, apart from a Lego builder and his room, which is in full color. And it's a stunning model. Can you tell us how you came up with the idea and how it was received when you showed it?
It was one day at work. My work had changed, so it was not so interesting as it has been. So I was really looking forward to come home and look at my Lego bricks. Maybe also looking forward to the next Lego event. And then I thought, how can I express this feeling in a model? And when I went home, I discussed it with Lasse, with Pia, and then went to this model. I think I had got 2 types of comments for this model. One is about the colors. When I showed it on the internet, people saw that I had used Photoshop.
Yeah.
Yes, but I haven't done that.
Yeah.
It surprised me. And when I showed it at the family days at the Lego factory, then there was kids there who said, oh, this is how Lego bricks looked in the old days, because they connected with the black and white photos. That was very fun. But of course also many have comments on the idea of the model.
And they understand what you're trying to show.
Yes, and that they could recognize the feeling that they have the same feeling.
Yeah. A lot of the models that you build, both of you, are big models, literally in more ways than one. In the past year, you are part of the group that built the models for the big exhibition in the Danish Center of Architecture in Copenhagen. Big, in this case, meaning Bjarke Ingels Group, the architecture company behind the Lego house. And out of 24 models, you built a full fourth, so 6 buildings in total. What was that experience like, being part of a group of international builders for an exhibition that is more than just Lego?
Yeah, I always like to participate in those covering buildings because it's fun to be together with all other AFOLs, and we can be better and more. And in an international project, we can be even better, even more buildings. I hope that I could meet with more of the AFOLs, but there has not been the money, so everyone could be there for installation and de-installation. But when we put the models, when we
set them up.
In the Danish Architecture Center, there was the architects behind the real buildings, and we talked to them, and it was very interesting to talk to them because it is not only in Lego bricks, it's difficult to build turning the buildings without right angles.
You actually faced some of the same challenges.
Yeah, yes, and it was very fun to talk to them.
That's really cool. I know you spent a lot of time sorting, and seeing what you've done with the bricks, you must spend a lot of time building as well. So, in an average day, how much time would you say you spend on Lego?
We use around 2 hours every evening, and in the weekends and holidays we are using a lot more time.
So, that means that this is your only hobby?
Almost.
Yeah. There is a third member of your household, Mr. Vestergaard, who has not been bitten by the Lego bug, and he thinks all the bricks take up a bit too much space, which is understandable considering you have 2 rooms full of Lego. I have to ask, do you keep any of these models?
When we have exhibited our creations enough of time, we separate them and use the bricks for other creations. We have to do that because Lego bricks are very expensive, so we have to reuse the bricks for other creations.
Okay, and that probably also makes it easier for Mr. Vestergaard to accept that there's Lego.
No.
So it doesn't.
In the beginning, we only had Lego in 2 rooms. But now we have too much Lego to have it all in just 2 rooms, so we also have Lego in some of the other rooms.
Okay,
but there's still many rooms in our house where we still don't have Lego yet. We don't have Lego in our living room, kitchen or bathroom. Not yet.
Okay, so that means it was an old interview, where you said that you only had 2 in 2 rooms. Okay.
My dad, he hates Lego. He says we have too much Lego.
Okay. But he still accepts it. I mean, it's okay, you get to go to these places, that's fine.
Yes.
He can't stop you.
He can't stop us.
So finally, Lasse, you are also quite the collector. You have many of the early wooden Lego toys.
Yes.
Some early examples of plastic toys that were not bricks. Early Lego sets, a lot of rare and hard to find items. And back in that same article that named you Nerd of the Week, Anameta said that you had a dream of opening a Lego museum. Do you still like to do that?
As a child, I wanted to open a Lego museum. Back then, there was no Lego museum here in Denmark, and I thought it was strange. But today, there's a Lego museum in Lego House. Therefore, there's no longer a need for that I open a Lego museum. But I'm thinking about that I maybe should start to exhibit some of my collection at Lego events, as I did 10 years ago when I started participating in Lego exhibitions.
Okay, thank you so much for coming, both of you.